Hey, y'all, grown Black folks talk. It is a hot evening in the city. It will be a hot morning by the time you see this. And so, this is a good day to have this topic. By the time you see this, it'll be yesterday by the time I get there. The scripture says, all things in moderation. And so, by the time you see this day before yesterday, I had to tell you about the incident where I was vetted on behalf of a Black man in the park who did an assault. Today, I have to tell you about the business conference I met, led by a Black man. All things in moderation. Be careful that your bad experience with any group of people does not tip over into actual bigotry because you do not know where your next blessing is actually coming from. Hot topic. I know that there are a number of you who I know who are very involved in thinking that you are going to completely separate from Black men. We're going to walk back just a little while in history. Now, I'm going to do this historically. I'm going to say it in an explicitly Christian way in a moment. But let me just walk back historically. In 1865, around the time of Juneteenth, the state of Virginia and a number of states in the South, but the state of Virginia actually had the audacity to say it. When slavery was over, Virginia felt that it had no further use for us. The last Black child who will ever be born in the state of Virginia has been born. They're planning to put every single Black person that had worked to basically build that state out. No concern about where they were going. And a lot of states in the South wanted to do that. Look up the Devil's Punch Bowl sometimes. The idea for concentration camps came from the idea that because these people are no longer providing for us, they are no longer of any value at all. Look up the Devil's Punch Bowl sometimes. This went on across the South a long time, off and on. Movements at the end of Reconstruction that literally pushed Black people as a unit out of the way because they were no longer any value. They were not providing anything, but look at what happened after you've done that. Look at the number of inventions that Black people created that allow us to live comfortably in the modern world after that. See, because what happens, and you can see this in history before I appeal to the scripture, what happens is somehow the people who have become so proud and arrogant, they think they don't need a massive body of people anymore. Somehow the things that are actually going to make the world a decent place to live end up being handed to that group of people. Anybody remember George Washington Carver? After the boll weevil came through and ate up all the cotton, it was George Washington Carver to figure out how to use that peanut and that sweet potato and make them viable crops so that everybody could eat. That's why you have so many people down there planting peanuts. People planted peanuts and peppers and sweet potatoes and things and kept going. Thousands of different products. Many things we still are out here using today come from that. Look up Black inventors from that time to this one. So, and let me just tell you, nothing that has been invented since 1865 has been invented without a Black man being involved somewhere. Yeah, I'm talking about Black men specifically. The soles on your outside shoes. Look up Jan Metzliger. Jan Metzliger, it's part Dutch, I can never quite get it out. He invented the Metzliger process to make soles for shoes. If you have fruit and you live outside California, there was a refrigerator truck that got it there. I believe his name was McHenry. Look that up. If you have a light bulb, everybody talks about Thomas Edison. Everybody forgets that Lewis Latimer figured out that tungsten would work for the filament and that he was putting in the time to be able to invent these things. Now, while you're looking at Black inventors, there are a lot of Black female inventors as well. A bunch. Now, I'm not saying that we were not involved. I'm saying that you had a population of people that absolutely despised us because we were of no value to them. We were bringing no money to them. We were not providing or protecting anything for them anymore. And they wanted to write us off. Goo gobs of them wanted us to die. You still hear bigots today, racist bigots saying today, we would have been better off if we had killed them all. There was a police officer recorded saying that as little as 7 years ago, 7 years ago. And everybody knows about Derek Chauvin and George Floyd. But see, if you read the history, you find out that the future of the United States, by the way, the war was not won. Abraham Lincoln and General USS Grant said, yeah, no, we would not have won without the United States colored troops and their analogs in the Navy. And then, of course, not mentioned all the Black nurses that helped to make that possible, since white women were not going to be allowed to do intimate work with Black men. We will never know what that number is, but it's hundreds of thousands of people. It wouldn't have been possible. The country needed us to preserve it. And by the way, we had a financial collapse. Guess what? Barack Hussein Obama and his ADOS wife went to the White House. That's what always happens, because the scripture says, and whether you believe in God or not doesn't matter. It does not change. I will use the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. God will always take the despised and the rejected and will hand off the blessings that other people now have to humble themselves and receive, or struggle or perish. So what does this have to do with us? A lot of Black women are sitting up here and putting all Black men, 13 to 15 million people, in the despised and rejected category. There's a lot of this out there. And what God's going to do, because now we think we're highly educated, this is true, Goldman Sachs is handing us money. Okay, do you know what the numbers are on Black business? Go look up these stats. It's cool that Goldman Sachs is going to put $10 billion into the hands of 1 million Black women. And there are 3 billion Black women approximately who own businesses, 17% of 17 to 18 million people. That number's going to come out either side of 3 million. Do you know that Black men own the majority of Black businesses, but there are only 10 million of them? And how do I come to that number? If Black men own 70% of the businesses and 3 million Black people own 30% of the businesses, that means there are only 9 to 10 million Black businesses in the country. That's it. So if you as a Black woman think you're going to get $10,000, okay, Goldman Sachs just paid a tithe. They put money into the hands of 10% of Black businesses. Goldman Sachs knows that the top businesses are not Black female businesses also. They also know that. The Black businesses that tend to have employees are owned by Black men. Black women own, like myself, a lot of sole proprietorships, a lot of personal service businesses. Goldman Sachs knows that. They're making an appeal to the most educated and adaptive Black women, but they know what's going to end up happening to the next 7 to 9 if they don't put capital in. Everybody else is going to continue to struggle. $10,000 is not going to go that long unless you have a lot of people to move it around in. And if you want to work with Black people, guess what? You are eliminating 7 out of 10 people. I just went to a business conference where I learned things today. They're going to make me money this week. Now, this time I can't tell you about these things, because some of these things that I learned today were really emerging business, and the cost of really being there, I didn't actually have to pay to go, was to keep my mouth shut about some things that I learned. But there are some things that I learned that make, even make me some money by the end of the week. This was world-class information. This is information that, if it's applied, could change any community that applied it. As Black women, we have to be careful. Yes, the stats say what they say. 1/3 of Black men are convicted felons. That still leaves 10 million people that are not, as adults. And 7 million of those men, because just math alone says that, own their own businesses. And they're surviving in environments that are not allowing them to capitalize, and they're still the ones that employ in general. You go look that up. So there's a good chunk, about half, are out here building businesses, supporting their families, supporting themselves, and also employing other people. Go look that up. And see, what will end up happening is, I recognize that many Black women have had very terrible experience. I recognize Black femicide, every 5.5 hours. I recognize that. I recognize the numbers on how many times Black men kill each other. 25 times a day, making a total of 29 times a day. How much is 29 times a day? Well, basically 29 times 365. It's a big number. It's bigger than 10,000. But if all 13 to 15 million Black men were these people, we could not survive. The country could not survive. That's what we are about 14% of the US population, so 7% of the US population like this. No, you couldn't survive. It's not a insignificant number, but it's not everybody. Now, I'm not saying that you need to be in partners with. I'm not saying that you need to form intimate personal relationships. You're human. Go form intimate personal relationships with whoever you want. I'm not saying that. I'm saying don't get so caught up that you don't understand. Because see, you can't control where your blessings gonna come from. You cannot. And what God will do is take the people that you despise the most and hand it off to them. And you either humble yourself or you miss your blessing and you miss out on things you can get in life. See, when many of you out here talking about, oh, black men are this, black men, I profit. I get opportunities. I make bank legally in a holy way. I lay down with no one. I am held in respect. I don't deal with the same black man. And that's how I know that there's a whole lot of black men that you are not seeing. Something else to put on that book of stats. There's a correspondence. Yeah, 1/3 of black men are convicted felons. A lot of those convicted felons have children. 1/4 of black women are single mothers. And even the people who are the loudest and proudest about telling you to abort black babies have black children with fathers who have multiple baby mamas. Don't get, and by the way, as I said on a comment to the previous video, people read our stats in tandem. They are abominable. We have together the highest rates of certain STDs. Our stats are abominable. No one is sitting up here going, except in financial matters. Nobody's sitting up here going, I mean, there's things like business people around the world know when you come to microloans and to Goldman Sachs, $10,000 a micro loan. When you go to loaning, it's more, everywhere loaning to the women because they will tend to look after the children, which also involves boys and girls going forward. So the community will flourish more than give it to men because men will tend to use that money to build up their broken egos. That's true around the world. That's just loaning practice. That's not because you're black. That just has to do with people know that if you're going to give small loans, give it to the women because they will tend to nest. They will tend to stabilize it because they have an interest in things being stable because they have the care of their relatives. They have the care of the children. So they will tend to stabilize it. Whereas the men can take it and run. Not all will, but there's enough data about that. So don't just sit up here thinking, it's because black men are so bad. Again, being a single mother does not build wealth either. 1/4. And by the way, none of those numbers account for, if we took it down to age group, those numbers look even worse. One group of people that is down horrendous may be down horrendous, but a group that's down bad statistically ought not to talk too loud. Because the other thing that history shows you is this: any wheel can turn. Everybody gets to be the flavor of the month. We're not out here so free in this country that there's just not things being promoted for other people's interests. Right now, black women are the flavor of the month. That can change. That wheel can turn quickly, depending on who feels it's profitable. Right now, big up in black women is profitable. May not be that way forever. That wheel can turn faster than you think. So by all means, I do this too. Take advantage of every opportunity you have. But do not allow your personal experiences with some black men. And don't think that your intimate experiences with the black men you've had intimate experience with defines everybody that you meet. You do not know where your blessings will come from. No enterprise anywhere, if you wear outdoor shoes, if you have a light bulb in your house, and you have food that was refrigerated in transit, operates without black men. Does that mean that the black man who was in the park, who has become a danger to himself and others, is a good black man that I would spend any time with? No. But today, I sat down with a fellow business owner who put together a clinic of excellent information, life-changing information. It did not come from a black woman. God sent that. Now, he's not even a Christian. God sent that to me through his common grace, through a black man. My father, my grandfathers, the ones I've shared with you got this done. Now, I'm not saying grandma was, oops, not that one. I'm not saying grandmother wasn't involved. I'm not saying that. But the vision that did this, that I own, God gave that to a black man. It is what it is, y'all. It is what it is. You don't have to like it. You don't know where your blessings are going to come from. That's not up to you. Please see the healing resources that are in the description. Now, of course, you can do whatever you want to do. You can be mad. You can try to disassociate yourself a little. Ain't no way. Phenotypically, I'm a Black person. Everybody's pretty much gonna be able to guess I have a Black man somewhere in my life if it's just my father. That's gonna forever link me with those stats. It's not even realistic. Now, the video I was gonna do is good tactical sense versus respectability politics, and I will still do that for later on. But don't become a bigot because you just don't know. Now, again, on an explicitly Christian level, if you get lifted up, and let me tell you how this happens. If you get let's go here. If you get lifted up in pride about a group of people, guess what can happen to you? This is happening with Black men versus Black women too. This is how many of us have been able to overtake and pass them. When you as a human being get into a mindset that you are superior, when you let your pride do that, guess what happens? It stifles your growth. This is why we've been able to overtake other races in terms of gaps. We've moved, poor Black people have moved more since 1865 than really anybody else in the country. We were slaves on June 20th, up to April the 8th, 1865, all the way to picking presidents and sending first ladies to the White House in less than 150 years. Now, yeah, less than 150 years. Choosing presidents, sitting around in January 6th counting votes, and the whole presidents of the United States persecuting people. We moved a lot. More so than any other group of people in this country. That's why we were able to overtake certain people, because God said, okay, I see that you're being oppressed. I see that you are being mistreated. So I'm going to put the blessing that the country needs in your hands. And now they're going to have to humble themselves. Man is on the moon because a Black woman calculated it. Under a light switch, under a light bulb that a Black man found a switch to. Wearing shoes that were made by the Metzger process. That's what God does. Black women are not immune. So if we get lifted up in pride and start looking like the 17 to 18 million of us are superior, just inherently superior to our 13 to 15 million Black brethren, like I said, I'm not saying you have to have intimate partnerships or break a family. I'm not saying any of that, but don't become a bigot, because what you will do is write your own ticket to the abyss. God doesn't play that. I'm telling you, history shows that's not going to happen. Whoever freezes into a superior position then falls. It always happens. It always will, because God always does it. Perfectly good example. When God was ready to send the Messiah, long awaited, he didn't send him to the throne. Caesar was on the throne. Herod was on the throne. He was in a manger. He will sit on the throne of the universe. He was despised and rejected. He was poor. Nobody believed he was who he said he was. Everybody thought he was born out of wedlock to a single mother and a dupe, a simp of a stepfather at that time. Only Mary, Joseph, Zacharias, and Elizabeth knew for sure that what God had said was true. God always does this. That's the story of Jesus Christ, God in the flesh himself. God always does this. So you get too caught up in writing off 13 to 15 million other people, plus all, if I hear it one more time, I was present on a live in which a great number of women took their time to try to get a mother to give up on her own son. Yeah, those of you who believe that kind of stuff, you're going to pay a heavy price for that. That's out of order. That's completely out of order. Your son, whoever he be, will be half Black. He'll be biracial. But he's going to have some things, and if you make it so that it's harder for men, the United States has not given up the one-drop rule yet. I'll just track biracial children getting opportunity versus Black. Yeah, it's a little bit better, but statistically, the pattern does not diverge as much as you think it would. So your children with your Black self are going to get caught up. Your sons are still going to get caught up. And the same bigotry that you put out today, even if you marry into another community, is going to catch your son or your grandson. I'm telling you, you don't believe in God? Fine. Read a history book. I'm telling you now, moderation is important. You don't know where your blessing is coming from. You cannot afford to be a bigot. And it needs to be said, this is not that space. This is not that space. I understand that we as Black women have come to a point where we're going to have to just do our own thing in large respect, because a third of our number are handicapped. A third of our counterparts are handicapped with felonies. We're going to have to do a lot of our own thing, just like we have been doing. I recognize that. I empathize with those of you that have had terrible experiences with Black men. And I'm not saying that you should repeat those experiences. But I'm saying you're not God over 13 to 15 million people. You don't get to determine everything that you're going to do over the course of your life and who you may need. It would behoove you, it would be to your best interest to not allow your bad experience to embitter you against 13 to 15 million people who you do not know. I sat down and thought about this. At 41 years old, I'm fairly gregarious. How many people do I know that I know? My phone used to have almost 200, but I wasn't calling all those people. These are people I met over the course of my business life and different business lives. So maybe by face, at 41 years old, there's maybe 200 people I would recognize and stop and talk to. People who are more people focused, maybe there's more. I'm not going to come out and say anything about writing off 13 to 15 million people based on my experience with 200, although that's the normal human thing to do. But I know God better than that. I do not know where my blessing is going to come from. However, I do know this, because it just happens to be my experience. It just so happened that my ability to be able to sit here and comfortably talk to you came through two Black men, my grandfather and my father. So that already being established, this would suggest to me that God may not be done, and I need not be so bigoted that I overlook a blessing that may come to me through a Black man like today. I had absolutely no fear. I've known this man for a long time. He's trustworthy. And I went and I received a blessing. And I encourage you to not allow a root of bitterness to take control of your heart such that you miss a blessing that will come to you from someone you've written off. I'm not saying don't take self-defense methods. I'm not saying doing that. What you may also find when you elevate your circles in general, that you will meet people who are in elevated states of mind. And some of them will be Black men. You will meet that. That's basically what I've done. I wouldn't have been able to articulate that to you, but through a process of carefully weeding people out who, I told you about the bookstore pre-dumpster dive yesterday, but a process of carefully weeding people out, you meet people who are in elevated mind states. I'm not talking about altered states of consciousness. I'm just talking about, you got off the drama train. Don't miss your blessing. You don't get to determine where your blessings come from. You don't know where the solution to the problems you're going to have is going to come from. In the United States, in a global economy, you can't write off 15 million people for everything. You don't know, particularly since the rest of the world reads our stats together. And let me tell you something. You can't do anything about that. Now, what you can do, and we talked about that yesterday, you make sure you move carefully so that people read your personal stats differently. But you're going to have to deal with that anyway. You may need the help of someone that you may find up there that has a good impression made by someone who happens to be your male counterpart. It happens. It does happen. Everything does not have to do with who you want to go to bed with. And gentlemen, this goes for you too. If you're a Black male business owner, and I mentioned this at the conference, it's high time for you to stop being mad at Goldman Sachs and figure out how you position your businesses. We talk about 7 out of 10 to become good business partners with this $10 billion that's coming into the community. It is coming. Because if this doesn't happen, it's going to go right back out again, which I think is kind of Goldman Sachs' idea. You're going to loan out 10,000, loan at interest. So they're going to get plenty, but a lot of that money is going to come back out. But there will be opportunity created. And if those of you who are anti-Black woman bigots would sit your or if you're not, that you would sit your brethren down and learn how to act like you have some gosh darn sense. This could benefit everybody because remember, everybody, hey, remember, all the Black children are needing us to figure this out and act like we have some gosh darn sense so they don't end up just born into either being breeding prison slaves or being prison slaves. You know, there's some Black children that need us to stop the foolishness and get this together. Does anybody care about the children? Where is their blessing going to come from if we keep acting like this? Finally, and I may make this a community post, this is not going to be a spot for anti-Black woman bigotry. It's also not going to be a spot for anti-Black man bigotry. In the name of my father and my grandfather, let me also tell you this. I am not male identified nor female identified as far as it goes immortal, but I am a Christian. Therefore, I identify with the Lord Jesus Christ. It doesn't make me more bigoted toward men. It makes me incredibly bigoted toward evil. I'm not be doing either one of those here. If I have to make a community post, I will. If I got to put people permanent listeners, because I'm not going to have those comments, I will. I haven't seen anything that crosses that line, but some of you didn't know there was a line, so I'm letting you know now. All right. Y'all have a good day. I had to go through this because there's something called confirmation bias. Y'all think because I saw a crime committed by a Black man that it confirms you in believing that all Black men are such a way. No, that's why I had to do this video to let you know, no, they're not. Balance is important. Try not to be a bigot. I'm not saying dishonor your experience, but keep your eyes open as you continue to elevate your circles. There will be Black men in them that you'll find at those levels. Don't just write them off. Don't be a bigot. Because what God will do to you, and if you don't believe it, read secular history, you'll find it. When you get lifted up in pride, God will take the very thing you're going to need and put it in the very hand of the one that you think you don't have to get it from, and you will humble yourself or perish. Read some history and learn that, and don't be the next victim as a Black woman. This is our moment to shine, but that wheel's going to turn. Trust and believe that wheel will turn because it's turned on everybody else. Y'all have a good day now. If you listen to the end, thank you especially. Because I know this hot topic, and some of you definitely don't want to hear this reality check, but you're getting this reality check. All right. Y'all have a good day anyway. Let's see if it's, by the time you see this, it'll be Wednesday morning. If it's cool enough today, I might go outside, put on my big sun hat and go out there. I still got to get some sunscreen. Thank you to the subscriber that suggested that. It's just like sunscreen in San Francisco. We don't do this. So I got to find out who has what on sale. I honestly do not know, having lived here all my life. We don't do this in San Francisco. And new adventures. Y'all may see you later. All right. Bye.